So we got the unfortunate news that the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moise, hope I pronounced it correctly, was assassinated in his private residence yesterday morning. As news of this rapidly spread through the world, there are many questions and concerns with the political climate of the country.
Yes, and here with us this morning are Professor of History and the Director of the Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery at the University College of London, Professor Matthew Smith, and President of the Jamaica Haiti Association, Merta Desolé. Good morning and welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Morning to you both.
Good morning.
Merta, let me start with you. What were your feelings when you heard the news?
Well, there was great shock and great sadness, but the turmoil in Haiti has been ongoing, well, forever, but more intensely for the past 3 years, since 2018, when there have been a lot of marches and demonstrations asking the president to step down. So I just felt that it was just the culmination of, of an explosion of all of these tensions that boiled over. Mm-hmm. But now there is a lot of mystery as to what actually happened. It seems that this was engineered by a group because it was a commando of mercenaries from Colombia and Venezuela. Not from those countries, but just mercenaries, meaning they just happened to be of that nationality. They could have been of any nationality. Mm-hmm. They went in speaking Spanish, French, and English, and posing as DEA. It is said that which is very surprising because the president is always heavily protected.
Yes.
So no one knows what happened to his, security service. They easily disarmed the few people who were there. Apparently, they spoke to the president. Nobody knows what they said to him. They don't know if they asked him to step down or to go into exile. No one knows. But apparently, he refused and he was shot. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it seems that there is a group behind this that has financed this, and we're still trying to find out who it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Professor Smith, I want to bring in here because one of the things we were discussing even off air is the legacy of British slavery and how it affects a country such as Haiti now in turmoil. And for contemporary folks, it may seem like this has been going on forever. How does British slavery and that legacy, even though the Haitian slavery is French, how does that come to bear to all that we see playing out?
Not very directly, Delia, and I perhaps should say that I expect that my role here speaking with you this morning is really through my work as a historian of Haiti more than my work as the director of the center here at UCL.
Excellent.
Of course, there are deep historical connections that go all the way back to, one could even say, the British occupation of Port-au-Prince in the late 18th century during the period of the Revolution. Mm-hmm. But when we think about immediate legacies for this of the period of slavery or the Haitian past, there are many that we can sort of draw out from the cycles of political turmoil that Haiti has faced at various moments in its history since independence in 1804. But even though we can find that and find those examples from dictatorship to coup d'etats to forced exiles of presidents, assassinations of presidents are quite rare. In the Haitian history, it's been said a lot in the media since yesterday that the last assassination that took place was actually in July of 1915, and it was an incredible shock at the time. In fact, in Kingston, where a lot of Haitians were living then, people were saying that the United States needs to step in and intervene. And in fact, that's exactly what the United States did and launched a 20-year occupation of Haiti, which was disastrous in many ways. So this is very this is a very different kind of period, because even then, and this comes to a point that Mirta just mentioned, where there have been assassinations or overthrows of a president, these have often been internally designed acts that were done by a military, by members of a political opposition or a sort of bourgeois power bloc. But those groups are weak, and in fact there is no military in Haiti at the moment. So we have a situation that is completely without precedent in Haiti's history.
Okay. You mentioned Occupy, Professor, but Mirta, I'll go back to you because there's a headline in our newspaper today that says Occupy Haiti. And this comes from Jean-Marie de Zulbe. I think the last name as yours. Are you suggesting, do you agree with that they should send forces into Haiti? It's on the front page of our Gleaner this morning, and it says Occupy
What?
Haiti. Yep, it's right there.
No.
You don't.
In fact, a longtime friend of mine who is a co-activist, militant that we've been in the trenches forever, totally dedicated to the Haitian cause, made that suggestion, and I don't think we're on speaking terms anymore. No, I am totally against the occupation of Haiti. In fact, the first occupation that Professor Smith spoke of in 1915, that is what started this nefarious stranglehold that the US has on Haiti and its politics. Because even though they occupied Haiti for 19 years and officially left the Marines left in 1934, but the influence of the US has remained on Haiti. And what you're seeing today is an explosion of the fact that the Haitian people are saying that they have had enough of their sovereignty and their self-determination having been confiscated for the last 106 years, where they have not been able to choose their own heads of state. So through flat-out dictatorships, like the horrendous 29 years of the Duvalier dictatorship, whereby we had François Papadoc Duvalier for 15 years, who was actually elected in 1957 and then declared himself president for life in 1964. And when he was dying, 14 years late into his rule, he decided that he was going to put his 19-year-old son in power when the Constitution said that you had to be 40 to be president. And he put him in power and he was in power for another 15 years. So and that's the reason why my family is in Jamaica. The horrendous 29 years of the murderous, internationally notorious, cruel dictatorship of the Duvaliers. And then you've had the fake democracies where they pretend that someone was elected, and in fact, the election was rigged, as the latest case being the one of 2010, when Martelly did not win. He came third. He was not even supposed to be in the runoff, but the OAS engineered the results of the election to put him in power, and he established the PHTK party, which is the bald-headed party, because he's a bald head. And this has brought us to this catastrophe that we have today, because he handpicked Jovenel Moïse. Those two administrations were thoroughly corrupt. They embezzled billions of dollars from Petro-Caribe funds that were donated by Venezuela, which was one of the main factors why people were marching and rioting for him to step down. And so, no, we do not want another. In fact, this is one of the things that we fear.
Okay.
The thing that we fear is that either the country will descend into civil war, or that the US will and the UN, or using the UN as a proxy, will use that as an excuse to send another disastrous occupation to Haiti.
Okay.
The last one lasted 15 years, and it was a disaster. It brought cholera to Haiti, which killed 10,000 people, infected 1 million. They raped children and women. They murdered innocent Haitians, right? They sodomized young boys. No, we do not want. It was supposed to be a stabilization force. There was no stabilization. We do not want another occupation of Haiti.
Okay.
I don't understand why my brother would have said that.
All right.
All right, so Professor, I mean, in your opinion, where do we go from here? I mean, you heard Merta, it's the Duvaliers, it was Aristide, Martelli. It's just a string of leadership that the people have been uneasy about. Is this an opportunity to finally fix that, or do you feel like it will just spark a continuation of all that's been happening over the decades?
The answer to that, Dale, is really going to depend on figuring out what actually has happened in Haiti. At the moment, we are really just speculating the circumstances of the assassination of the president. We need to figure out who was in charge of that, who organized it, who are the opposition groups that might emerge as a potential leadership force, who are the members of the government who might emerge. There is no real functioning state at the moment in Haiti. All of that needs to be sorted out and figured out before we can even begin to envision a path forward. There is a role that the Caribbean can play in this. Haiti is a member of CARICOM. CARICOM has released a statement now acknowledging that they intend to be part of any sort of plan going forward for Haiti. That needs to be something that CARICOM takes very seriously, and neighboring governments are also very much involved in it. It's a complicated situation. It's changing on the ground constantly. People are emerging as players and as aspirants for state control that many of us are unfamiliar with. There really needs to be some sort of gaining of some perspective on what's happening. And then, of course, we have a situation where there are gangs that have come together and are in great force on the streets of Port-au-Prince. How do you disarm them? How do you sort of get some sense of security back in the country at this point? And how do you take care of Haitian citizens who are dying of COVID and infected with COVID without any vaccine program being rolled out? Really, really significant and seemingly overwhelming problems on the ground right now that need to be addressed before we can envision a way forward.
Yeah. Final question, Merta, can you tell us the latest on the president's wife?
Well, we heard that she has been evacuated to Miami.
Right.
We don't know yet what her condition is. The latest in terms of the assassins, we hear that 4 of them have been killed.
Yep.
And 2 arrested.
Okay.
But, you know, we're still trying. But as I said, they were mercenaries. So they clearly were acting, they were, you know, paid by some group to carry out this commando operation. And the question is going to be to find out who is behind this assassination.
All right. Thank you so much to you both. I pray that everything will work out in your country. It's a wonderful country, and we just pray that they will get it right. Professor, thank you, sir. Stay safe to you both. God bless you.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Mirta Bezulme, President of the Jamaica Haiti Association and Professor of History and Director of the Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery at the University College London, Professor Matthew Smith. Discussion we could have all day.
All day, but you know, you find that people like Merta who are Haitians in the diaspora make a significant difference because I feel like they are able to articulate a lot of the challenges that people who are in Haiti are themselves not able to articulate, and so, you know, more power to her.
She's very passionate, isn't she?
Yeah.
Take a break. We give you the tips on creative block when we come back.